Yo, what's happening people? I'm Era from EraTheProducer.com and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you how I make dark orchestral samples for UK drill beats. If you're new to the channel then please consider hitting the subscribe button and click the bell next to it too so you can be notified every time that I drop new videos. Now with all that said, let's take a look at the sample.
Era on the track.
So for this loop I wanted to go with a dark orchestral feel, so majority of the sounds that I used are from Contact. I'll show you all of the banks that I used as I go through each sound so you can recreate something similar for yourself. If you don't have access to Contact and you just want to use the VSTs from your library that sound the most realistic. Labs has some nice orchestral sounds and you'll even find some nice string sounds inside of plugins like Expand 2 and Vital. To start with, I went to the Orchestral library and chose one of the sustained violin patches and I used this to put my initial chord progression down. Here's how those chords look, but I'm just going to delete this and remake it so you can see exactly how it was made. So like most dark genres, you're going to really want to focus on these half step or semitone intervals. All this means is notes within your scale that are right next to each other. So the first thing I did was lay down a minor triad chord. Then from here I just copied this across and moved this top note up by one semitone. Then to get my last two chords I just copied this across and shifted it up by 5 semitones. Then this D was slightly out of the scale so I just moved this up to the D sharp. Then to keep that dark feel I wanted all of my chords to be close together, so I just took this C sharp and D sharp and put them down an octave. Then to colour these chords a little bit, I added a top line of random notes that sounded good to me. A good tip for doing this is to use notes that are already in your chords and then you should find that pretty much anything is going to sound good. So I've just pasted my old pattern back in and now I'm going to go over the effects. The first effect that I added is my new favourite reverb, Rev Intensity. I'm using an auto filtered preset and I've just turned the dry wet down in the channel rack so it's not too intense. Next up I added Soothe 2 and this is just going to manage some of those resonant high and higher mid frequencies. This is then going into an EQ which is cutting everything below 130 Hz. And the last thing that I added is the J37 tape plugin to add a subtle wobble to it. And once all those effects have been added, the strings now sound like this. For the next layer I stayed inside the same library, but this time I chose to go with the pizzicato violin. This articulation is a lot more plucky and I'm going to use this to add some rhythm to the chord progression. This is what the pattern looks like, but again I'm just going to delete it and show you exactly how the pattern's made. So this pattern was actually really easy to make. I just copied the pattern from my first chord progressions and then deleted all of these top notes. Then from these remaining notes I just made a nice arpeggiated rhythm. What I then did is added some notes on each of the downbeats, and this is going to be similar to the chords where as long as you're using notes that are already in your chord progression, anything's going to sound good. Then from here I just took the whole pattern and copied it down by an octave. For the effects on this layer I just used the channel EQ to roll off some of the low frequencies. And then I added guitar rig with the vocal space preset. Now because I've taken out a lot of the low end frequencies, I wanted to reintroduce a new instrument that's going to sit in that range. For this I went with the LA Custom Grand Piano from Keyscape. The pattern for this layer is very simple. Again I'm just using notes that are already in my chords to help me figure out the pattern, and here's what I came up with. Now I really wanted this piano to fill up the low end, so I didn't really add too much to it. I've just got an EQ that's managing some of the muddier low frequencies and boosting the highs a little. And next I added the Rev Intensity reverb, again with the auto filtered preset. The last layer that I added to this loop is another violin patch, but this time I went with the infamous Gypsy Romantic violin. This pattern's only going to play on the second half of the loop, and this is going to help add some variation to it. Looking at the pattern, you'll see that I'm using those semitone intervals wherever I can, and this is going to help keep to that dark feel that I want. Now this violin patch can be a bit overpowering, so I've just got some effects that are going to help it fit into the mix a bit more. I started off by adding Soothe 2 with the close mic'd strings preset, and this just helped manage some of those sharper mid frequencies. I then added Guitar Rig, and again I'm going with the Vocal Space preset because I think it really helps soften some of those harsher instruments. Then the last thing that I added to this layer is the J37 tape machine to make the violin sound a bit more vintage. Once I added all of those effects, the violin sounds like this. So that's all the elements that make this loop up. All I had to do then was arrange it out so that violin only plays on the second half. Then the last thing I did was added all those tracks to a melody bus where I added the waves pitch shifter and put it all down by one semitone. And this is how the final loop sounds. So that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. Let me know in the comments how you think this one turned out. And big shout out to the Patreon gang for suggesting this one. If you'd like to have a say on what type of content gets uploaded to my channel, then make sure to go and check out my Patreon page. And another way you can support the channel is just by being subscribed and liking the video. I'm getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm already planning a giveaway for when I get there. If you're still here at the end of the video, then massive shout out to you. I've been Era, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.